Okay, we're on live. Okay. No one's on just yet, but anyways, start with a few introductions. Hello everyone and welcome for tonight's live stream. Today I am joined by a special guest. His name is Alex. This is a Brisbane Carnivores collaboration, and what better way to collaborate with someone who is in the healthcare industry. And so I just want to say, firstly, welcome Alex, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Let's start off, I guess, with your story, your beginnings as to how you came across the carnivore diet, first of all, but also what eventually made you do the carnivore diet, because there's often a lot of pushback or uncertainty when people say you're going to be eating a diet which is just meat or predominantly meat. How did that all start for you?
Yeah. So I found carnivore through finding keto, which was through my brother who went on a bit of a health journey and lost a ton of weight. And I was sort of like, that guy in the room going, "Ooh, what's he on? I want a piece of that." And I started it as well because at the time I was not at a weight that I really felt comfortable at. And even though I was going to the gym and exercising fairly regularly, I still, was carrying weight that I thought shouldn't be on me. And I sort of thought, being a health professional, I think, we need to somewhat look the part. And there's plenty of health
Yeah.
professionals who don't, but that's for another conversation. Um, so that was how I found it. And look, at the time, I was eating a lot of greens and lots of salads and stuff, and it worked tremendously well. So I remember my lunches were just like, tuna, like a salad and some, salad items. And just for dinner, I was having eggs and meat and probably a few veggies. And I would have lost probably about 15 kilos within like 3 months. Like it was really quick. Yeah. So I knew that there was something to this. And I was, you
Mm.
know, the algorithm started to play and, all these videos on YouTube started coming up. And I just started getting really interested in it. And, I was seeing the carnivore diet come up. And I remember at the time thinking, that sounds a little extreme. I don't know that's for me. I think everyone would, it's the natural reaction. Because, not so long ago, I was still of the belief that red meat was, well, red meat in excession wasn't necessarily good for us. That I didn't think red meat was bad, but I thought if you're eating too much, it could be dangerous. And then I guess I just found it by started to find some just overwhelming, anecdotal stories that just sort of, blew my mind and thought, well, I might as well try this. And I started to try it, and I probably would be 85 to 90% carnivore now. I still, I've got partner and family that still eat veggies and stuff, so I do every now and then, but it's mainly just meat and eggs and water. I guess my killer is beers on the weekend, but I'm working on cutting that down. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, so that's how I found it. It was just through the keto and just watching heaps of YouTube and then finding all those big influences, and you've heard this before, like Anthony Chaffee and Dr. Berry and Dr. Sean Baker, Jordan Peterson, because I was a big fan of his. I was watching a lot of his podcasts, Joe
Yeah.
Rogan, and then I just sort of started to question everything. And I've always been very curious and questioning, certain things, and we've always thought there's got to be an alternative way of thinking.
Mm.
And yeah, I just tried it, and I ask anyone, like, just try it and see how you feel, and people are normally amazed. But the thing that amazes me the most out of all of it, and I wasn't really an autoimmune disease sufferer, but the amount of anecdotes where people are curing their psoriasis or whatever it is, the autoimmune disease that they've had, and they've been on these drugs for a long time, like Crohn's disease, and even things like, multiple sclerosis. I have seen some people go on the carnivore diet and, their symptoms, are non-existent. And that was just like, whoa, what's going on here? But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you saw me on that last podcast with Dave McDonald, and I was going on there to talk about, my difficulty I'm having with the doctors and difficulty having with nutritionists. That was the main reason why I went on there. It wasn't necessarily telling my story, because I don't think really my story is that great. It's just I just found it naturally through keto. But it was
Mm.
more about, I'm, sort of gagged, I guess, and he used that he used that term in the thumbnail. But I just got to be careful what I say, and you're in the health field as
Mm.
well, and we've got a
Yes.
real uphill battle, um,
Yes.
and we just got to be very careful, and hopefully in
Yes.
time, the narrative does start to change. But I'm still seeing a lot of news coming up saying red meat is bad, and it worries me. Um, but yeah, if that's to answer your second question, I can't quite remember what it was, but does that answer everything?
Yeah, that does, mate.
Yeah,
That does.
yeah,
But let's put some time frames in this. So I'm assuming this is a couple of years back or a year or two ago when you first heard
yeah,
about it, or yeah,
yeah. About
yeah.
three and a bit years, I'd say. Yeah,
And so you've so if you were to put a timestamp or when you started, that would have been 3 years ago since you've been carnivore. Is
yeah.
that
I
right?
would say I've been carnivore about two, but I was keto probably about 3.5. I would say. Yeah.
3.5 years. So that's a total of a low carb diet, like 7 years all up. Actually, that would be about
No,
seven
no, no,
years. Is that right?
no. So I mean, including keto, it would be about 3.5.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
so
not so
you've
not
got a
so
fair
not
bit of
that long.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean,
but
not
that's
not that long, but like no one's been on it that long, right? I mean, so and I guess that's the
yeah.
argument against it is like, well, we haven't got this long term evidence, but I mean, yeah, we'll see, but I can't really see what's unhealthy about it. Well, not yet, anyway. But we could be wrong. Mm,
I mean, look, that's why you could be wrong, but I guess
mm,
the responsible thing to do would be just to say that in fact there's very little evidence for a lot of things, and a lot of the
mm,
so-called evidence that they have said supports things like saturated fat is causal
mm,
for heart disease. There's
mm,
plenty of evidence to suggest that it actually isn't.
mm,
And
mm,
um, it's only now that people are starting to really open their eyes since the carnivore diet started. But I'm the same like you, man. My story isn't as amazing as well, like others, but it all started to really kick in once I personally just started doing it, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
mm,
it makes sense. Like,
mm.
how did you sort of break through the barrier of I guess uncertainty? Because I'll tell you what, it was hard, man. It was hard for me
Mm,
to say, all right, I'm gonna go carnivore. It took me probably a few months. Since watching Dr. Sean Baker's stuff, Ken Berry's, I was just like, man, these guys are crazy for even thinking
mm,
about
mm.
talking about this. And yeah, it took me a while. How long did it take for you, or I guess what broke it for you to be like, all right, I'm just gonna give this a go?
That's a good question, and I don't know if there was a specific moment, but I think it just happened very, very slowly and very naturally. And then the other thing too is that, and I say to people, like, it just became really easy to cook, you know, just
Mm,
eggs and meat.
yeah.
Like, you don't have to bother, because I'm into my cooking. I used to make like big risottos and try and impress people. And these days, to impress people, I just put the steaks on the barbecue, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
apparently I'm apparently I'm apparently pretty good at it, right? And I do some pan steaks, and I'm good at doing different types of eggs. Like, I make really good scrambled eggs, and I make some nice fried eggs. But it just got really easy, and then like I'm pretty time precious, and I'm just thinking, well, this is easy. This is easy to do, and it's not
Mm,
really that expensive, even though some people say it is, because all you're eating is meat, and you can, if you don't eat it all, you can put it in the fridge and have it for lunch the next day. So that was
yeah.
another big significant factor, just the ease of it. And then
Easiness of it. Oh,
I noticed that, like, I wasn't necessarily losing weight, because I was still being a bit cheeky on the weekends with my booze hounding, but I wasn't putting on weight, and I
yeah,
look healthy. And the big indicator for me is the skin, because when I wasn't eating well, I had breakouts, um,
yeah.
and just feeling just a little unwell, having to go to the toilet all
Mm,
the
mm.
time. Like, I don't
Yeah.
have that anymore. And some people that's criticized my diet have just sort of thought, "Oh, you're gonna be in the toilet all the time," and I was like, "That's absolute rubbish. That's not the
Yeah.
case." My
Nonsense.
my fecal movements are very normal,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
necessarily daily. Sometimes they're every couple of days, but it's not like I'm constipated or anything. So that's an absolute
Nah.
myth. Whoever came up with that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
mm,
And imagine like uh you know, I work with patients, and you know, we're so fixated on bowel movements,
mm,
and we're so fixated on trying to make sure everyone has regular bowel movements.
mm,
Everyone, that I see, they're eating what I consider to be a high fiber diet. Like now, I think
mm, mm.
anything that's more than a gram is more than what you
Yeah,
need. But I see
yeah,
people eating fiber, and just the amount of issues that you hear a lot in the
mm,
hospitals. Like you can clearly see that it's not a not it's a huge issue. Like I can see
mm,
that including fiber in your diet is going to have a lot of issues.
yeah,
Um, I think I've got a question here for you, Alex,
hmm
or it could be for both of us. I'm not sure. If you've just adapted to a carnivore diet and want to reintroduce exercise as part of your lifestyle, what types of exercise would you recommend starting off with? That's a good question. I'll let you take that one since you're a physio.
okay. I wouldn't think that there is anything that's not appropriate, really. I'm a big advocate of lifting weights, so resistance training. I think everyone should be
Mm,
doing. And if you
mm,
like cardio, then I haven't had any problems running or cycling or swimming on a carnivore diet. So find the
mm.
exercise that you like and just stick to it. But you'll definitely find that if you're lifting heavy weights, the carnivore diet will make you stronger because there's
Yes.
creatine at stake, right? So you're full of
Yes.
protein and you're full of fats, and that's how you use your energy. And you certainly do not
Yes.
need carbohydrates to lift heavy weights. That's an absolute myth. Yeah. I'm trying not to swear on this podcast, by the way. So I'm using
Oh,
words
swear
like
away,
myth.
man. It's
I,
okay. You
I'm
can
using
swear
words
away.
like
It's all
myth.
good.
We're
Yeah.
using words like myth instead of bullshit.
Yeah, no,
So,
no, 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 no.
uh,
We'll use
yeah,
bullshit. We can
yeah,
swear. It's all good, man. I'm not getting money for this, so yeah.
yeah.
Not getting paid. It's not monetized. It's all good. Now that's along the lines of what I would say as well. I think no exercise would be out of bounds so long as you've adapted yourself well into the diet that you're actually maintaining your day-to-day physicalities with no problems. Like if you're experiencing like fatigue or any symptoms that will really deter you from exercising, then I think that's a clear sign that your body's telling you not to push it.
Mm,
But I started training after 6 months in carnivore, and I was pretty much strength training. I've been strength training, resistance training since then. So that's about 2 years. And yeah, you're
mm,
right. You don't need carbs at all. Mm,
mm. No,
not at
absolutely not.
all.
But if you
It's
want
just like,
evidence, and it is anecdotal, but I think you know we're going to have to find anecdotal evidence to support the carnivore diet because I don't think these big pharma and big food are going to let these studies be done. I honestly believe that. But if you want
no,
anecdotes, look at Sean Baker and look at Anthony Chafee. They're balls of muscle,
yes,
and their
yeah,
lion diet. They're just steak and water. So look at them.
yeah,
So, and
absolutely.
I'm sure there's plenty of
Y-
others. Mm,
There are others out there, and
yeah.
I'm hearing in the wind amongst the NRL players that there are a few NRL players that are on the carnivore diet, or at least
Nice.
close to a carnivore diet.
Mm.
Um, I think there's some that's already come out and have said it. I can't remember who, but yeah, they are. It's starting to, and I'm hearing also MMA
Oh yeah, yeah,
fighters as well. Yeah.
yeah. That's not new
Mm.
news. The NRL's cool though. It's certainly not the Broncos because they got smashed. It
No,
must
it is
be
the Broncos, man. It's the
Oh, it is
Broncos.
the Broncos. Okay,
Yeah, it is
that
the
does
Broncos. Yeah.
support my theory. Sorry, sorry to
Yeah,
those
yeah.
who don't know NRL. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
they might have a better season next year. They just need to get used to it. So
Yeah, better system, better
yeah,
coach. Anyways,
yeah.
not part of the. uh, anyways,
Mm.
DC, thanks for coming on, man. What's going on? And Leon, hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Feel free to just ask your questions along the way. AD, thanks, good answer. Thank you for your question. And I love walking and dancing, but I may look into resistance training as I go. Thank you. Yes, definitely. Um,
It's a little physio
mm,
advice from me. I'll chuck this in right now. Resistance training is so important for everyone. Okay, it's important
mm,
for the really stiff and old, and it's really important for the really flexible, hypermobile people. Everyone needs to be doing
mm,
resistance training. Not saying you can't do anything else, but the evidence is overwhelming now that resistance training
mm.
everyone should be doing. Okay, so if that question comes up
And we're
again, I'm
not
going to say
talking.
the same answer. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, good on you. And we're not
Mm.
just talking about, you have to go hit the gym,
No.
and lift heavy weights, right? Like, can you elaborate on what sort of resistance training would you recommend to,
Yeah. Well,
say,
resistance.
your average Joe?
Yeah. Yeah. So resistance training could be anything like a push up or a squat. I mean that's against
Mm,
resistance. It's against gravity.
mm,
But I would sort of recommend people once they get into that kind of exercise and they find it easier, definitely adding some external resistance such as resistance bands or dumbbells or barbells or kettlebells is definitely worth it.
mm,
So yeah, you don't
mm,
have to go
mm,
straight
mm.
into the gym and hop on the heavy squat. You can work your way up to it. And I think that's the big problem with people getting into training is they just get so overwhelmed about walking into a gym. But see, gyms these days are
Yes.
much different to they were in the past. So, back in the 70s and 80s, it was a real certain stereotype of person that went. It was either like the real steroidy gym junkies, or it was like the chicks with the leotards doing all the fancy dancing and stuff. That was gyms back then. But these days, gyms they're so diverse. And I don't like that word diverse, but I'll
Yes.
use it anyway. And most people who go into the gym just have their pods or they have the headphones in and they zone out
Mm,
and zone in on what they have to do, and they don't even talk to you. So there shouldn't be anything you get
mm.
overwhelmed about. It's not like you walk in and everyone's be like, "What the hell are you doing here? You shouldn't be here." I think that's what people honestly believe. So I couldn't
Yeah.
recommend more
Yeah.
for people to just at least try it with a personal trainer and see what you think, or a physio. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And let's talk about anecdotal stuff when it comes to training, because the misconception of requiring carbohydrates before and after exercise to either build muscle or for performance. What's your experience in terms of going, let's say, even keto,
Mm.
and your performance and, I guess, body composition changes? Have you had any major changes or different comparisons between a carb eating diet versus a keto diet?
Mm. Unfortunately, I'm not a big sort of mad scientist with myself when it comes to training, so I haven't really measured my numbers. But I pretty
Mm,
much train fasted every time I train. So I don't eat breakfast, and I'll train at
mm,
12:30. And I haven't noticed any difference compared to when I used to train years ago when I'd had breakfast. I'd probably say I'm,
right.
I'm slightly stronger, to be honest, but like I don't think the nutrition matters as much as people tend to think it is. Okay, what matters is if you're consistent and you're going all the time, you're doing the exercises properly, not lifting, weight that's too heavy for you. It's just that consistency.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can have energy as fat. There's no problem with that, and there's too many anecdotes now to say that doesn't work. So
Mm,
carbohydrates, yeah, if you want to, but if you don't burn them off, they're going to be stored as fat. So look out.
yeah,
Mm,
absolutely. When I add on carbohydrates, like I've just done it for an experiment, like let's say a handful of blueberries before training, makes
mm,
no difference. Actually, it makes
mm.
me feel hungry straight after.
Yeah, yeah,
It just makes me hungry, and then that leads to tendencies to either binge or just
mm,
crave a lot more foods that I shouldn't be eating. But
mm,
man, 2 years of training, and I'll just give you a little bit of history of what my training background. I used to train in powerlifting. I used to do a lot of strength training um, for years. It was decades before I went low carb keto, and I used to be very much carb centric. It was
Mm,
carbs, carbs, carbs prior to meals, prior to workouts, prior um to competitions, and it used to be just, you know, after weigh in, it was just you needed to fill in with carbohydrates just to get you through the day. Um, and now being fat adapted, I'm like you. I can just go to the gym fasted. I actually prefer nowadays to train fasted. I don't
mm,
know if that's a general consensus with the carnivore community for those who train, but
mm.
I personally prefer to train fasted, and I get more out of my workouts uh, during a fasted,
Mm,
training fasted.
mm.
So yeah, um,
Yeah, I've had zero problems fasted training, so it could be different
mm,
for other people. Um,
mm,
but I would just say just people just to give it a shot, train fasted or
yeah,
train with a steak just before you train, to see what
yeah,
happens. But
yeah,
yeah, like I said before, I think the main thing with the gym is is consistency. You just keep going. It's that people really worry
that's it.
about their macros and all that sort of
Mm.
stuff, and um, it doesn't really matter. You're either strong or you're not because you haven't put the time in. So,
Along the lines of the fitness industry, and I
mm,
guess the conceptions of how we need to diet and how weight loss works. What are your thoughts now on calories in versus calories out? It's especially being a carnivore, where a lot of people say they don't even track their calories anymore
I don't.
because, yeah, yeah. What
Mm.
are your thoughts on calories in versus calories out?
How could it possibly be true? Like how could 1,000 calories of peanuts be the same as 1,000 calories of steak, or 1,000 calories of Coca Cola be the same? It doesn't make any sense if you think about it.
Physiologically, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. But clearly it doesn't work. Like, obviously, I know there are people out in the fitness community that have done it and have lost weight very quickly. But you notice those people put the weight back on very very quickly.
Yes.
So yeah, I've thought about this long and hard for a long time, and I've had colleagues and friends just be brainwashed with this message. And I think it's
Mm.
absolutely false. And I think it's big food, big pharma came up with the slogan years ago, and whether they thought it was true or not, and it's only benefited them. It has only benefited them if you think about it. Yeah. So
Mm.
doesn't matter what you eat,
Yeah.
just count your calories. Um, yeah. So I don't
Yeah.
count them at all. So I just 2 meals a day if I'm being strict. Um, and
Mm.
I maintain a pretty healthy weight. So I
Mm.
think people need to stop doing that. Just eat the right
Yeah.
foods. The best evidence of all, and I just remember this is how, and you work in healthcare. Have you ever worked in the gastro unit, leads and stuff?
Yes, I have actually. Yes, I
You have,
have.
yeah.
Yes.
So
As a
I've had a
student,
few,
yes.
yeah, I've had a few close friends who have had the surgery, and
Mhm.
they lose weight very quickly over a 6 months, 12-month period. All right, and
Mhm.
obviously the downside is because they're very big before they go, and they get the loose skin and everything. But
Yeah.
you notice over time, if they don't change the type of foods that they're eating, and we know that they weren't eating well beforehand, they will
Yeah.
slowly over time start to expand that stomach, and they will start to put the weight back on. And I've sadly seen someone
Yeah.
who was well over 150 kilos lose a ton of weight and has probably put another 30 or 40 kilos back on just from eating the wrong foods.
Yeah.
But see, they can't eat much, right? So how could calories in, calories out possibly work? They can't eat that much, and that's what the surgery was designed for. Like, you won't be able to eat much, so you'll maintain a good weight. But that's false. A lot of them put the weight
Mm.
back on. So and
They
even
do.
one of my friends has confessed. He said, "Yep, you're 100% right. It's not how much you eat; it's what you eat." And he's seen it happen to him. He's seen it happen to his partner. They
Yeah.
both had the surgery together. They went like this, and then they've slowly gone like that again. So
Mm. Mm.
So that's another bit of
And you're
anecdotal
talking
evidence.
about gastric band surgeries, right? You're
Yeah,
talking about
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
mm,
yeah. Which
it's
which is
it's
just
horrible. Yeah.
yeah, it's just a money grab for the surgeons and the health system. Um, but yeah, I've seen it, and people I know and care about lose a ton of weight. Life is good. They feel so much better, and then over time they start to put the weight back on. But
Yeah.
they still can't
Yeah.
eat it. They still can't. They still can't eat much. You know, you'll give them a bit of steak or something, and they'll eat like a quarter of it, and they'll say, "I'm full. I can't eat anymore."
I'm sick. Yeah. I
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
sick afterwards. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
there you go.
It's amazing too. And what people don't realize is, you're obviously going to restrict your function of your gut. And so w- everyone is so fixated on trying to lose weight. Trying to
Mm,
lose weight, and the way to do it is to restrict calories, restrict the amount of food that you're eating. But they forget the primary purpose of what a diet is supposed to be, which
mm,
is to nourish your body, to fulfill your
mm,
nutritional needs. And if your
mm,
system ain't working properly, you're not going to be absorbing a lot of key nutrients that your body requires. I mean, you hear these side effects that the doctors and surgeons tell you that, hey, you're probably going to be suffering, or you're probably going to run into issues with iron deficiency or vitamin deficiencies. And so a lot of these people, don't want to use the word patients, but these people, and I see, in their medical histories, they've had gastric bypass surgery. They're on a ton of supplements for
mm,
vitamins and medication and minerals that you simply can't get from your diet because of the surgery. And so
mm,
you've essentially you've eliminated this, or I guess you've put a band-aid fix on you eating so much, but like you
mm,
said, in a couple of months or even years, the weight just gets put back on.
mm,
It's very sad that
mm,
um that it seems to be the norm. I don't know about in other countries, but here in Australia, definitely I see a lot of people going towards that route where it's
mm,
just better or easier. I don't know what the thought process is, but they'd rather go through the surgery than to try and fix their diets, which is
mm,
really, very sad
mm.
to hear. Mm,
Must be
mm.
awfully depressing for them too, that they were used to, enjoying their food
Yeah,
and enjoying the social, part of it as well. And then you see them and they just, yeah, like you said, they get sick after eating a quarter of the plate. Like that must be awfully
yeah,
depressing. And then
yeah, yeah,
watching themselves in the mirror put the weight back on. It's crazy.
yeah. Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Let's go with I got a question for you.
Mm,
And you alluded to it earlier about saturated fats and having a
yeah.
fear of saturated fats.
Mm,
Um, talk us through um, what you were taught when you were going through the motions of becoming a physio, or
mm,
even what you've learned in general about saturated fats. And I guess, how can you help others break through this wall of lie? I'm going to say bullshit,
yeah.
uh, of people saying that saturated fat is bad for you, it causes heart disease. What have you got
Mm.
to say, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if it's bad for us, how come all our ancestors weren't dying of heart disease? Because that's all we were eating once upon a time, and
Mm,
that's how we evolved.
mm,
So heart disease is
mm,
only a modern phenomenon, right? So, we should all know the story of President Eisenhower having a heart attack, and that was in the 1950s.
mm,
And then, it was global news. What is this heart disease? And Ansel Keys, the physiologist, whether he was a crook or not, came up with a hypothesis that it was all to do with saturated fat. And there's also another scientist, I can't remember his name,
mm.
who came up with the hypothesis that it was all to do with sugar, and obviously he was right. Um, and then he did
Oh,
that cross country study. Yeah, I can't remember his name. Anyway, he did that study, and then he cherry picked the evidence and just at least said, "Look at this correlation, right?" And we know in science correlation doesn't cause causation. So that's how it started. And if you look at that time period, that's when they took the fat out of the food, even the processed food, because processed food is older than 1950. It's been around since the late 1800s. That was when we started to get fat, and that's when all these chronic diseases started to occur. All right, so that's a pretty powerful bit of information, and you can argue me on that, but I mean, yeah. So, and what was the rest? And what was I taught? So, I mean, we did physiology classes at uni when we were studying physio, and pharmacology classes, and we all learned about statins. And someone's got high cholesterol, they're on a statin.
Yeah,
this is what we were taught. Obviously, physios aren't taught as much as in depth as doctors are, but I mean, my course was pretty pharmacology heavy and physiology heavy, and we were just taught, whoop, LDL's high, whoop, statin, this is high, this. At the time, I didn't really question it because I come from a medical family, and doctors and pharmacists and stuff, and for me to tell them, and I have told them, by the way, that LDL isn't a bad thing, don't give a statin. They look at me funny. What would I know? So
yeah.
yeah. This is the problem, right? So I just said I'm not going to convince someone, just by telling them something. People have got to go do their own research, because that's how you and I slowly evolved, and we slowly started to wake up, and we took the red pill, if I'm to use that phrase. But it wasn't like one day I was just thinking in my bed, saturated fat isn't bad. It's months and months of eating it and reading about it, and also listening to the counter evidence as well. And as you alluded to before, like there's no hard scientific randomized controlled double-blind study that proves that LDL cholesterol causes heart disease. There isn't.
No.
Okay. There are studies that prove that if you eat a lot of meat and eggs, your LDL cholesterol goes sky high. There's many studies to prove that, but there isn't a study that proves that gives you heart disease alone. Okay. Heart disease is caused by excess sugar in the bloodstream, and high triglycerides, which is caused from high sugar. So it really shits me when diabetics come and see me, and they're taking metformin, and they're saying like, I'm eating healthy, I'm eating fruit, I'm eating grains and stuff. I'm just thinking, I was about to really swear then. I'm just thinking, what are you doing? That's just like pure carbohydrates. Like, that is the disease, plain and simple. There's too much sugar in your system. Stop consuming sugar. But I just don't think the wider public understand how a carbohydrate turns into a glucose molecule. They just don't know that, and they need to know that. And once they know that, they'll be like, oh, okay. So basically, chips, there's sugar. Yep. Potatoes, there's sugar. Yep. Pasta, sugar. Rice, sugar. It's all sugar. And we eat way too much of it. And if you look at our diet, it's probably like 80% carbohydrates if you really think about it.
We eat a plant-based diet. It's a plant-based diet. That is the standard Western diet. It is a predominantly plant-based diet.
Yeah. Yeah. With all the colors of the rainbow, and it's balanced, and all the food companies are being looked after. So if you really think about the broad picture, this is all been, whether they all got into a room and said, this is how we're going to, stuff everyone and make sure everyone profits, whether they did that or not, I don't know. But it's certainly worked out that way, and it looks like that way. And look, I understand, and I said this to Dave, like, I understand, businesses have to make money. I'm not against that, but I am against them making lots and lots of money at the detriment of people's health. I think that's criminal, and that's evil. And we would be much happier in a much more cohesive society if we were all healthy, or all much healthier.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you're following the presidential election in the USA, but so John F. Kennedy Jr., who was a Democrat, has now endorsed Donald Trump, and his main message is he's talking about the food. Finally, a big politician is talking about chronic illness in the food. So if he gains any power or prominence, then hopefully something at least a conversation and a hypothesis may start, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
Even a uh, an attention grab just like that, I think that speaks volumes in terms of what is to come, I guess.
mm,
Because if we've got someone, one person talking about it, and they've made it as far as to reach the public audience, then you you bet be sure that there's tons of other people that are just waiting for that cue to make that move and actually talk about it. Um, Pretty much what I noticed when Dr. Anthony Chafee made that 60-minute breakthrough in that episode, uh,
mm,
I noticed everyone started to know what the carnivore diet was about. Everyone,
mm,
like around, and it was just that one episode, I reckon, that just
mm,
triggered, you know, uh, uh, whether it was asking me about it and like, oh, aren't you on a carnivore diet or things like that. It got people talking, and that's what we need is just more traction. And I'm with you, man. The the way that we've been taught is just it really frustrates me. It frustrates the crap out of me. I said this on a live stream once. I cannot believe that I can clearly remember reading in my uh, pathophysiology textbook a section on gluconeogenesis.
mm,
And I knew what it was. I knew what the concept was, but it never clicked to me after, oh geez, 15 or 16 years, 16 years onwards, that hey, actually, we don't need carbohydrates in our diet. It took me 16 years to realize that. Oh my gosh,
mm,
I learned this in freaking nursing school in my first year.
mm,
Yet we still told bullshit. We are told misinformation. And the thing is, because it's become such a norm, people just accept it to be true. Say it how many times, say it, 100 times, and it becomes gospel. That's what's happened since the 1950s. It's just,
mm,
saturated fat, bad. Carbs are essential. You still need them for,
mm,
for your day to day function. Meat rots in your gut. You need fiber. All these things, um, it does put a strain on on public health. And
yeah,
I speak on behalf of someone who works in public health,
mm,
but and I'm just going by my anecdotal experience. It is getting worse. It is getting really out of hand. The amount of chronic diseases, the new I don't know if you come across this in your practice, but we are getting an influx of functional neurological disorders. A lot of new
mm,
just a surge
yeah,
of them,
yeah, mm,
I'm being serious,
yeah. I shouldn't laugh, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
it's just a surge
it's
of them. It's crazy.
mm,
We never 10 years ago, we never knew what a functional neurological disorder was. We never used to.
mm,
I work predominantly in a rehabilitation
mm,
ward, and I've been working in rehab for 10 years, and we never heard of FND. And
mm,
now
mm,
it's like it's such a new thing. Guillain-Barré syndrome. That's just a surge of these new conditions. Um, Strokes. Oh my gosh, we never used to get a patient that was under 50 in the ward. It would be once or twice a year that we'd see a young stroke.
mm,
Now
mm,
we'd see 30-year-olds. The youngest
mm,
I've seen is a teenager who's
mm,
had a
jeez,
stroke. And it's just like it is getting worse. And when people say, "Oh, you can point at the associative and you know the associative data that we've got that say, saturated fats are a huge part of the problem." Well, if that's the case, we've introduced these guidelines, and we've introduced, these the things that people have been taught uh,
mm,
almost over 100 years now, and chronic disease has just skyrocketed. I'm sorry, it just has
mm.
not improved.
Yeah, and saturated fat hasn't skyrocketed in our diet either. So that's,
No,
that's
no.
bullshit. That's bullshit if they're saying that. And that's all we
Yeah.
ate many thousands of years ago. And we
Mm.
evolved, you know,
Yeah.
and we were the dominant species. So that's
Mm.
crap. It's the sugar, it's the chemicals in the processed food. It's those two things mainly, and that is what's causing 90% of chronic illnesses. I'm even going to say
Mm.
95.
Oh,
So
yeah, push me there.
and yeah, yeah, let's go 93. But
No.
and that's the thing. Like, I used to be really hung up on, "Oh, I've got to know what the diagnosis is, and I've got to know the pathophysiology behind that, and I've got to be able to explain it to
Yeah.
patients." But these days, man, like, I don't even bother, because why does it matter? What matters the most is the treatment and how we're going to get you fixed, right? That's what matters
Mm.
the most. It's the behavioural change, it's the exercise, or that's what
Mm.
matters the most, because and there's so many different conditions at the knee and the hip and the elbow and the shoulder and stuff, but I treat them pretty much all very similar, through my rehab
Mm.
process and my behavioral change and my education process. And I get the same results. So it shouldn't matter what disease it is. It should be matter what we do about it or how we prevent it. That's the most important thing.
Mm. Mm. And
Yeah.
to add on to that,
Go
oh,
on, go on.
sorry, you cut off there. Oh yeah, before you go
Yeah.
on, just add on a lot of the like you said, a lot of these conditions, these autoimmune or chronic diseases, they can all be pinpointed to a an etiology.
Mm,
Chronic
yeah,
systemic
exactly.
inflammation. Inflammation is a huge it plays a huge part in all these chronic diseases. And
Mm,
what is the most anti-inflammatory treatment? In my opinion, I think it is a carnivore diet. That is a way
absolutely.
to lower inflammation. And that can get into a very sticky debate depending on which crowd you're talking about or you're talking to. But with you, I'm glad you agree with that. Yeah.
100%.
Um,
But it's the opposite that they're telling us, that red meat is so inflammatory, and they're obviously not on the carnivore diet, so they don't know.
nah,
And that's
I
that's
know.
the uphill that's the uphill battle we have. But I
Mm,
really like what Dave Mack is doing, and I don't know how he does it, because he does so many interviews. But he's just trying to
oh my
find
gosh.
so many. He's trying to find so many anecdotes, because as Jordan
Mm,
Peterson said, he said eventually an overwhelming amount of anecdotes will form a hypothesis, and that's what we've
mm,
got to strive for. And once we've got that proper hypothesis, that's when the research can be properly done. Because, as
yeah.
I said before, I don't think big pharma and big food are going to allow a proper carnivore study to be done. Because I think I
No.
said on my last podcast, there was that Zoe program, that because that Christopher Gardner,
Yeah.
who's I finally remember his name, the biggest health
Christopher
nutrition
Garden.
scientist in the world. He said doing a carnivore study would be too unethical to perform. So he's
No.
already decided he's never going to do it. Right?
No.
Too unethical.
No.
Like the perfect study, I was thinking about this yesterday, would be like a 12-month study comparing vegans, um, carnivores, and omnivores on a
Yeah.
non-processed food diet. That would be the perfect study. And then maybe you could have another group for just on the general American diet or the Australian diet. But
Yeah.
and I can guarantee the best results would be the carnivore and the omnivore by far.
Mm, mm.
But I just can't see it being done. And it's very hard to
You
do
know,
nutrition research, because you've got to pretty much lock people in a room or lock people in a facility for 12 months.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's the funding. So and
Is
those
the
those
funding
studies that they get, yeah. So that's what I
sample
think.
size too? Like you just cannot get a sample size big enough to actually, you know, capture uh, I guess the general public to say that you'd have to include younger people in the study as well. You can't just stick to
Mm,
an older population, which most of these
mm,
you know epidemiological studies go for. It's people over 50.
mm. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mm,
So yeah, I mean, I I pray that there will be some good evidence that comes out, because that the other side, that's always they go to, like, where's your evidence? Where's your evidence? Where's your evidence? And look, that's a valid point. But eventually, I'm gonna. If someone says it to me, I'm gonna snap. I'm gonna say, fuck your evidence off, right? You know,
Yeah.
it clearly doesn't. It clearly doesn't mean anything. How could it?
No.
We're still unhealthy. It's just going to have to be. It's just anecdotes after anecdotes, and eventually the word will get out, and the YouTube and all the social media. And as you said, Anthony Chaffee's program on 60 Minutes. There needs to be more of that. And that reminded me of another
Mm,
point I'm going to talk to about in a sec. But that's the only way I can see it happening. Can you see any other way?
mhm. Nope. I don't see, with so much pushback from industry, from pharmaceuticals, from people with vested interests in
Mm,
whatever it is, it's just not going to
mm,
happen. It's not.
mm,
I'm sorry. I'm being very pessimistic about this subject, but it's just not going to work. It's not going to work.
mm,
There's not enough. There's not enough money to be made if we cure everyone.
mm, mm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got another question here before you go into your next thought. Do you think
Mm,
some autoimmune diseases linked to inflammation within the body could be completely reversed by implementing a carnivore diet?
100%, without a
Hmm.
doubt.
100%. Type 2 diabetes.
I mean,
It's oh no, it's not an autoimmune. Sorry, type 2 diabetes. What's a autoimmune condition?
Crohn's disease.
Crohn's. I was just thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Psoriasis is a good one. So people's
Mm.
skin clears up. Alopecia.
Alopecia. Yeah, that's
Um,
true. Mm.
what's some other good ones? Look, I'm going to say MS because I've seen some good anecdotes, but I'm not going to be
Yes.
like, yep. I'm not going to be, it's like 100%. But look, if carnivore diet cures MS, that'll be the greatest revelation of our time.
Yeah.
Think about it.
Yeah.
That will be the greatest revelation of our time. There's
I
a
think I have.
lady who has a YouTube channel, and she was interviewed by Dave, or Dave interviewed her, whatever.
Mm.
Um, and she's a great example of someone who was a real bad MS sufferer who found the carnivore diet. And I know
Mm.
that's just an
Yes.
anecdote, but like, if you see so many anecdotes, eventually you just sort of like, it's just too overwhelming. You're like, well, at least give it a go.
That's
At
data.
least give it a
Mm.
yeah, give it a go and see what happens. So to answer
Mm.
your question, like I 100% solely believe that autoimmune diseases can be cured and put it full into
Yeah.
remission with a kind of carnivore diet, depending on
Mm.
how strict it has to be. Obviously, depending on people's genetics, um, it could just be a lion diet, which is just steak and
Mm.
water, but it could just be a standard carnivore diet, which is your all types of meats and eggs.
Mm. Mm. You hear about Crohn's a lot, like a lot of people, a lot of anecdotes of people who have reverse Crohn's disease going on
Mm.
a carnivore diet. But another one I just thought about as well, type 1 diabetes.
That's a
Um,
good one because I.
y- yeah.
What do you think about that? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do think that at its etiology, it's to do with it's to do with carbohydrate intake. It's to do
Mm,
with elevated blood sugars chronically. And because you've obviously got uh malfunction somewhere in your physiology that you aren't
mm,
able to produce insulin. Well, if you eat a species specific, species appropriate diet, eat a diet that you're supposed to be eating, then you eliminate that issue all up. Easy.
mm,
You simply just eat a carnivore diet. You no longer have to be on fast acting insulin. You could be on a slow
mm.
release insulin,
Yeah.
um, just to obviously maintain that homeostatic set point of insulin that you need, um, and you're off meds. That's it. You've cured
Yeah.
diabetes.
Yeah. I would say I agree. I think it's early intervention is more important because you've got to realize some of these type 1 diabetics, eventually their pancreas just dies, right? So
Yeah,
if
yeah,
it dies,
yeah.
it's not going to produce insulin. So it's all about early intervention. And this makes me really, really sad. But this is the troubles that I have, and I'm sure you have. So one of the guys I work with, his daughter, who's only 4 years old, has just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and obviously
Yeah.
it's a real bummer, and their whole life has changed, and he's constantly checking her, blood glucose levels on his phone, all sort of stuff.
Mm.
And I'm just biting my tongue, just thinking, get her on some steak, just like you can
Yeah.
save this, you can save this girl right now, but I just know if I said that, he'd think I'm some sort of wacko, and that's the problem we
Yeah.
have. So I've just got to be careful, But I was just thinking, yeah, that's exactly what she needs. She needs to save
Yeah.
her pancreas. She needs to save it right
Yeah.
now, because if she doesn't, it will die, and she'll be ever dependent on insulin. Because I have seen YouTube channels of type
Yeah.
1
Yeah.
diabetics on the
Absolutely.
carnivore diet, but these people have discovered it in their 30s and 40s, so their pancreas is already in trouble. So,
Yeah.
but they do report feeling
Yeah.
a lot healthier, but they still get their drops, their hypos and hypers, but it's just not as frequent
Yeah.
as it once was. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm,
No, and their HbA1cs, their blood glucose levels are flatlined, so you're not getting
mm,
these big troughs and big spikes that if
mm,
they were, which I see a lot because I deal with type ones a lot, and you put them on in a mixed diet, even if they're on insulin, just the massive spikes and drops throughout the day. I mean that is I guess that is where the damage is done. It's when you've got these big spikes and these that those are that is what I think is most dangerous for a type 1, is to put them
mm,
on a put any carbs in their diet, and I think it's just crazy, you know.
mm.
Um, it's dangerous. It's absolutely dangerous. I've got
That's good.
another comment here. I'm working with my daughter on her keratosis pilaris. Early days, but we're seeing results. I'm assuming that's hair
Yeah,
keratosis.
the inflammation of the keratin, so some sort of skin disorder, I
Oh,
would say, or maybe it's something to do
yeah,
with
yeah.
the yeah, mm, something to do with
Oh, well,
keratin,
I hope she does get better.
which is yeah.
Hope we start seeing some results, Troy. Hmm.
Mm.
Um, how are you with time, by the way? Just making sure that you're not.
Oh, I'm fine, man. I can chat through it as long as you like.
All right.
Mm,
Um, one thing before. Oh, hang on. It's red blotchy skin. Oh,
okay. Yeah.
yeah. Oh well,
Some
I
sort of
hope
skin thing.
that.
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
Mm.
I had skin issues. I had eczema. Um,
Oh,
although I
eczema's a
wouldn't
perfect
say.
one. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Eczema was another one. Yeah. Yeah. um, it definitely improved my eczema. In terms of getting the flare ups, because it would be seasonal for me. It's always seasonal. But yeah, carnivore diet definitely helped with that for sure.
Mm, mm.
Um, let's talk about the uphill battle that you alluded to very early on our conversation, being healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
Um, talk us through your struggles, because I've definitely had my fair share.
Yeah, it must be awfully hard for you. And before I tell you about that, because I did my time on the wards when I was training as a physio, and like I've
Mm,
been in Queensland Health, and almost every patient, first thing you do is what's their medical history, and it's just all the same. Dick, 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 dick.
mhm,
You know, but they've all got different things, but they all the medical history is all the same. So they're obviously all eating the same foods or got the same lifestyle. So it must be
mm.
incredibly difficult for you not to just say, by the way, once you get out of here, eat some meat, but yeah, but the
You
question,
can't.
look, yeah, you're gagged,
You
right?
can't. Mm,
Um, look, and like I said, this was the reason why I spoke today. It wasn't to talk about my story. It was to say how I'm having difficulty talking to health professionals and patients, because where I work, it's all very referral based. So it's not like I open
mm,
my doors and people walk in. Okay, so
mm,
people can do that, but it's extremely rare. So my patient load is all based on obviously word of mouth and the referrals from the GPs and referrals from the specialists such as orthopedic surgeons, such as dentists, because I do some TMJ physio as well. So
Okay.
I've got to tread very, very carefully. And some of these doctors are becoming, well, they are friends, yeah, and they're becoming even closer friends. So like I've got no problem talking about this sort of stuff, and I don't care if they find out, but I don't want to mention names or mention businesses or companies because that could sort of taint the relationship a little bit. But yeah, I guess the way I'm doing it is I just ask some questions. I'm thinking of a sports doctor I know now well, and I'm just sort of like, because he's only been out a few years, and I sort of like, well, what are you taught? What are you taught about LDL? And he's sort of saying, oh, it's different now. We only prescribe a statin if this is elevated and this is elevated, which I kind of call bullshit on. But he reckons it's sort of changing the way they're taught. But I just sort of say, like, how do you explain these really, really fit, healthy people who have this like sky high LDL cholesterol, but all their other numbers are
Mm.
extremely low and safe? How do you explain it? And they don't really give you an answer, but they say, "Oh, if it was that
Yeah.
high, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. I've got to be on a statin, or you got to monitor it." Um, so I
Mm.
think what we need to do is we need to stop relying on the blood tests for proof of atherosclerosis, because that's really what they're looking for. So people who don't know
Mm.
this, when you're looking at a blood result, particularly cholesterol, what they're worried about is if it's very elevated, particularly LDL cholesterol, they're worried that they're developing plaque on your arteries. Okay, and plaque on the
Mm.
arteries is also known as atherosclerosis. If you had a lot of atherosclerotic plaque on your arteries, you run the risk of some of that plaque breaking off, and that's how blood clots form. If blood clots form, that's how you get a heart attack. That's how you get a stroke. Okay, and that's how you get a pulmonary embolism. That's what they're really looking for. So rather than relying on blood score, let's rely on a scan. Okay, so there's a CT scan or there's a calcium score scan that you can do to see if there's any plaque on your arteries. If there's no plaque on your arteries
Mm.
and you have a high cholesterol, then you're fine. But we're not doing that.
Mm.
We're not doing that enough. And that's normally like a last resort. So it should be the yeah, exactly. It should be the gold standard. If you're worried about someone's cholesterol or someone's plaque, they've got to be put under a scan. Or we've got to figure out a better way to do it, because I
Yeah.
just can't
Yeah.
see how it's gonna change. Because a lot of those normative
No.
values too, man. And look, when looking at blood tests and stuff, like I call it bullshit on a lot of those normative values as well. Like resting heart rate,
Yeah.
I do not think 60 to 100 is a normal resting heart rate. I think a normal heart's resting heart rate is about
Mm.
40 to 60. Okay, these are just and that's just one example. These are just numbers that years ago they thought, oh, this is the population, so this is where it should be. Okay, I think we should be
Mm.
leaving a lot lower than, or some of the scores should be a lot higher, such as that LDL cholesterol.
Mm.
So yeah,
Mm. Mm.
sorry to go on that rant. Um,
No, that's
but
awesome. I love it.
but but yeah, I think the way I'm going to get around it with the doctors that I'm friends with is I'm just going to slowly, covertly, sneakily ask them little questions that they can't answer. That's how I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
and we'll see what
Mm.
happens.
I think that's yeah. That is I guess in along the lines of what I would do as well. It has to come from anecdotes.
Mm,
It is all going to come from anecdotal experience.
mm,
I never talk about the carnivore diet, or I never tell people, about this new thing, the carnivore diet. No, if they ask me a question like, and this may not relate to you, but if with a patient and they're talking to me about breakfast, and I say I haven't had breakfast, and oh, what are you going to eat for lunch? I said I'm going to have a steak. Oh, and then it sorts to flow on from there, and so that's how I slowly get the message out there. And
mm,
it's not
mm.
even it's not a hard message. It's just telling them that, "Hey, I don't eat veggies. I don't eat fruits." And I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
And a lot of the patients are like, "Oh my gosh. Like, are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm serious." And
and
they're
yeah,
just so yeah, they're just
yeah,
so surprised. Yeah, sorry, man, go on.
yeah, I was just gonna say, and then you say, "Yeah, look at this body, god damn it! I don't eat any fruits. I look like
Yeah,
this."
yeah.
Yeah,
I have to show 'em a photo of what I used to look like. and they're like, oh yeah, it's definitely worked. So with patients, like it's obviously a clear line that I can't breach. I obviously don't have the scope of practice to even talk about treatment. I can't talk about um, interventions that aren't supported by, of course, what the team have suggested. But I'm not shy to talk about my anecdotal experience.
Mm.
Nothing you
Yeah,
can do
that's
about
right.
it. It's my life. This is that's what I choose to do. And well, for colleagues, on the other hand, I find I have actually reached out to more health professionals than I have in my personal life. Most of the people that I know that are on the carnivore diet or are on keto are actually health professionals. I've actually spoken to a consultant who is uh, who's even like considered it and actually thought about it,
Mm.
um,
Mm.
which is great. Which is what we need. Is because we need health professionals, and I guess that's why I wanted to reach out to you, Alex, because I think you know we're blessed in a way that we've been given this position where we can, you know, we've got comfortability to talk about these things because we've got the knowledge base, I guess, a
Mhm.
very albeit quite small compared to nutritional scientists and whatnot, but
Bullshit.
people
I
look
reckon
up
I
to
know
us.
more than
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to be
them.
kind there.
I'll debate them anytime. Yeah,
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
going. So yeah,
But yeah, we get looked up to. People look up to us, and but I still do get the pushback, like from people that say, yeah, you're like, what? You're a nurse. What position do you have when it comes to talking about nutrition? But when you start getting into conversation, and I don't know if you've had any actual debates with people, um, you know, you get a lot of well, the evidence says this, and you think, oh,
mm,
your evidence,
yeah,
yeah, bloody hell,
yeah,
the
yeah,
evidence again. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um,
I remember when I was at uni, really disliking scientific papers, mainly because I was too lazy to read them. But now I've
yeah,
got a reason to really hate them because I know that
yeah.
half of them are just crap. They're just bullshit, and
Mm.
particularly the physio stuff. How do you do a physio study? It's
Oh,
very difficult. That's very difficult to do.
no.
If you really think about it, like when you read the
Yeah,
methods, you're like,
yeah, yeah.
I can see how how this could easily fuck up, So and you just base it on people's, oh yeah, I feel really good or something like that. But it's the same with the nutrition stuff. It's just observational, And so I really the scientific community. It's more the academic community just trying to push papers out to keep their bosses happy. That's what it really is.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be
Mm.
the cynic, but I've really become one just because I just know I just know how it works. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Mm.
that's what we're dealing
Absolutely.
with. But yeah,
Um,
I've had little mini debates with patients, and but it's funny. Like I'm a physio, and I don't like claim to be an expert in nutrition, but I do have people who ask me, what I should eat, and then if they ask me the question, I just tell them the truth because they asked me.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Mm.
and sometimes because one of the places I work, I've got a little beer fridge right under me, and that's where I have my lunch. And sometimes I'll get it
Yeah,
out and just say, "This is what I'm eating today. Look at this. Oh, that looks nice. Yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah,
is
yeah.
nice. I'm looking forward to it after I bench 140. Can you do that?"
Mm, mm. Yeah.
I
And I
don't,
didn't eat anything beforehand.
yeah, yeah, and I don't say that, but so yeah, if they ask me, I'll tell them, but I don't. I try and hold off a little bit because I do get a little bit carried away talking about nutrition or talking about big. I don't use the word big pharma, but I often try and say to patients like, don't rely on polypharma. You don't, which basically means taking heaps of
Yeah.
medications daily. Don't rely on that as your fix. You want to be off that. Do it now, but
Mm,
you want to
mm,
be off that through, nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, and then sometimes you can
mm.
sort of see them looking at you a little bit funny. So I've got to be a bit careful there. But I think, yeah, eventually I want to get to a position where people know exactly who I am and know exactly the way I think, and they come and see me because of that. And I'm just going to speak
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah.
Because I was
Yeah.
thinking before, man, like, if the good people do nothing, like, what are we? Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't consider myself a bad person. I consider myself a person that I'm out for humanity, just like Elon Musk is. He's for humanity. All right, he's trying to
Yeah.
help us, and I'm trying to help everyone too.
Yeah.
And if the good
Yeah.
people say
Yeah.
nothing, and what shits me is that people always label you as a radical or as extremist. They always go to these big words, and these days I
Yeah.
just don't care. I just don't care. You know, I just don't
Yeah.
care. You can call me that. Okay, that's old.
Yeah.
That's old
You
school.
zealot.
Come up with a
You
yeah.
Yeah.
Come up with a new word, right? Yeah, or
Yeah.
say it
Yeah.
to my face. Say it to my face. And they won't. So
Yeah. No, they don't.
yeah,
They don't.
mm. But yeah,
But
it must be
you're
hard.
right.
And,
Like,
and yeah, go on.
sorry, go on,
Sorry.
man.
No, go on, man.
I was just gonna say, yeah, it is hard. It's hard. But it's very hard for me to stay quiet as well. Like,
Mm,
I I decided to pursue a career in health, in nursing, obviously. But I always knew that I wanted to become someone who looked after people and help people improve um, their health and well-being and whatnot. And I was very passionate about it, and I still am. I'm very very passionate about helping people. But 3 years ago, when I went through my own health, changes, my own health journey, and I realized that there's just so much that people don't know. There's
mm,
there's a shit ton that we've got wrong. There's a shit ton that uh, people just think it doesn't actually apply to them. But in fact, when it comes to things like consumption of carbohydrates, majority of us will do better off in a low carb diet or a lower carbohydrate
mm,
diet.
mm,
Um, and the thing is, yeah, it is hard to, I guess, to do that in the current state of healthcare right now, just with obviously what people have been taught and the current status quo on
mm,
what we should and shouldn't be doing.
mm,
So I've branched out, man, and I've decided to become a health coach because you know what? I'm taking this into my own hands. I'm actually going to try and help people out at the front lines because I no longer consider me being in the clinics or in the hospitals a frontline worker, because healthcare shouldn't start on a clinic. It shouldn't start in a hospital. It should start in someone's house. It should start in the kitchen. It should start on their walk to work or their way to
mm,
work in their everyday life. So I just said, man, it's very hard to let this information keep this information to myself. I don't know if you felt the
mm,
same thing, but it's just hard. I can't sit by and say, "Oh yeah, continue doing what you're doing." Eat a standard Western diet. You know,
mm,
or cut your
mm.
calories. It's all good. Like listen to what they tell you. No, it's just hard for me to do that. I can't.
Yeah. No, 100%. I'm exactly the same. And it's not just the health I care about. Like, I care about politics, and I care about the money situation, and if we're going to recession, and
Mm,
I know it's all very preventable. All right. And you were
mm,
saying before that how bad things are getting in the public health system. Like, do people not realize that that directly affects them because they're the taxpayer?
yeah,
And do you want to know
yeah.
why the dollar is inflating so much? It's because we're printing money to pay for this. That's why. And don't get me started on the NDIS, whatever you do, because that's a
Oh no, no,
discussion
no.
right
We're not.
there.
We're not gonna. We're definitely
Yeah,
not
yeah,
going there.
yeah,
No, no, no. Maybe offline, but
yeah,
this is
yeah,
yeah,
um,
yeah. This is
yeah,
getting interesting.
um,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, like you said, people just don't know, and they don't know how it directly affects them. And there's too many people in this world that just have these real selfish mindsets, and they just think, oh well, I don't care. It doesn't affect me, but it actually does, and they don't even realize. and then the ones that complain, oh, this is so bloody expensive, I can't afford this. And like, well, there's a reason for that. If you know economics 101, not, well,
Yeah.
whether economics 101 at uni does teach that or not, but it's just the way it is. And this
Yeah.
socialist experiment has been done before many times around the world, and it has never worked.
Yeah.
Never worked out. And we're
Yeah.
going down the same slippery slide here. And the
Mhm.
public health
Mhm.
system is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And there's people like you that have seen it, and you're trying to do something about it. And that's awesome, man. I commend you for that. And I'm sure you're not going to be the
Mm.
only one. Um,
No, no, I'm
yeah.
definitely not the only one. I know there's,
Mm,
and I look up to people like Dr. Chafee who are so vocal about it. At first, I'm like, dude, how is this guy? He's a doctor. He's being vocal
mm,
about this. Like, isn't he like, oh shit? Shouldn't you be like a little bit more reserved about what you say? But no, he's just straight up. He's very straightforward, and I think that we need more people like this. We just need to really get the
mm.
message out there somehow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, before we move on, man, I've just got some of these comments that we haven't attended to. I was told that a 40 to 60 heart rate was for athletes. I
Okay.
was
And I want
too.
everyone to,
I was told
and
that too.
I want everyone to think about this. Do we consider athletes the most healthiest people in the world? Do we?
No,
We don't.
I
Well,
don't.
okay, but maybe they're not. But we're attracted to athletes because they're good looking and they're healthy, right? So is that not what we should
Mm,
be striving for? We should be striving for that because they look healthy
yeah.
and they are and they're fit. So yeah, 40 to 60 is a normal resting heart rate, in my opinion. When it gets into the
Mm,
30s,
mm.
that's when you've got to, be a bit careful. Because some of these like
No.
real ultra extreme cardio people have to like wear like a monitor to wake them up if their heart rate goes below 30 or something like that. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
all the healthy people that I know, and they're not that athletes, their resting heart rates in the 50s. Mine's
Oh,
sort of sits around 60, but if it ever gets too high, I'll do something about it. So
yeah. Oh, sorry. I was actually thinking on my mind. I wasn't thinking. I was thinking bodybuilders.
oh
So,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's the most unhealthy sport in the world. There's no doubt about that. They might look
Look,
healthy, but
I
they're
mean,
not.
yeah. Yeah, I think people when they look at, oh wow, this guy looked good on stage, like
Mm,
that shouldn't be a like, and I do have respect for bodybuilders in terms of what they do and the effort that they've put through in their training, and a lot of the carnivore bodybuilders out there that are promoting a carnivorous diet, I think is a wave that people need to start catching on to, because hey guys, guess how you build muscle? It's through protein.
mm.
I don't
Right.
know where this misconception is about. We need carbohydrates to build muscle. Like, come on, man.
Mm.
But
Well, it's
yeah, yeah,
not just muscle. It's all our tissues thrive on
yeah,
protein. Yeah. So
yeah, yeah.
bones and all sorts of stuff. Like I get a lot of like osteoporotic patients come and see me, and normally the first thing I say is eat more protein, eat more fat, because that will actually help build your bone, and then
Mm.
train. That
Yeah, yeah,
that is the frontline recommendation for people with osteopenia or
yeah, yeah.
osteoporosis. Yep.
Mm, mm. Yep, absolutely. Got another one here. Oh, hello, hello. Hey there, Colt. And I've got a question. Thoughts on coconut oil? I've added it back in and I love it. What are your thoughts on coconut oil, man?
I don't think we need any oils, and I'm starting to even get off olive oil a little bit as well, because that was the one I was like, yeah, maybe it's okay, but it's just butter,
Yeah.
lard, tallow for me.
Mm.
Little bit of
Uh,
extra virgin olive oil every now and then, but I think
mm,
the
mm.
way oils are made, if you want to see how they're actually made, you can't possibly think that that's
Mm.
good for you. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be fair, I don't know a lot about coconut oil, but I'll let you answer it.
For me personally, uh, I actually for the last 2 years have not had any coconut oil. It's only a couple of months ago I started to introduce it back in. Um, I love it for the taste. I love it for, the flavor. I just, growing up in tropical climates, I love coconut. But do you need it? Not really. I think it's more of a preference if, for clients that I have on my health coaching side of things, if they don't want to be cooking with animal fats, then the two oils that I would say are the next best thing would be virgin coconut oil or you know extra virgin olive oil if you cook it in very, very low heat. Actually, don't if you can, just not cook it. You put it on heat at all, and just use it for dressing. But coconut oil, it's okay. I've had it on my coffee, and yeah, I love it. I've actually been having it every day now. So yeah. So take my carnivore card. Take my carnivore
Yeah.
card. I'm not carnivore anymore, guys. I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exposed. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm exposed, guys.
Yeah.
You could lump
Mm,
me under the same category as
mm.
what's his name, Saladino. I'm there, I guess. Oh dear. All right. Well, we're an hour and 15 in. Is there anything else that you sort of wanted to talk about or ask any questions about?
Um, well, yeah, just tell me more about your health coaching thing, if that's all right. So when did you
Yeah,
start
man.
it?
So I started earlier this year, around May, and I studied through the Primal Health Coach Institute. Um, and basically, what I do is I help people with changing, with making lifestyle changes and any sort of transition towards the low carb diets. So I try not to just promote a specific diet for an individual. I think,
Mm,
people have to come to that conclusion on their own. I obviously talk about carnivore a lot. I obviously talk about keto a lot. Um, but we all have to start somewhere. And so yeah, I predominantly work one to one with clients, but I also offer group coaching, group challenges, and I've run a 4-week weight loss challenge using low carb and keto, and I got really positive outcomes for one,
mm,
but just the experiences of people. Um, it was just really fulfilling because, you know, like we've talked about, it's very hard to talk about this with patients. It's very hard to cross bound, to stay within boundaries while also trying to educate them about diet. But in my health coaching side, I've got freedom. I can talk to them about, the importance of saturated fats. I can talk about cholesterol and say that it's a vital nutrient. Like it's something that you absolutely require. Otherwise, you'd cease to exist if you didn't have any
mm,
cholesterol.
mm, mhm,
I can talk about studies. I can talk about the evidence that suggests that actually saturated fats don't cause heart disease. I've just got a lot more freedom, and I think it's fulfilling, and you know, yeah, it's amazing. It's been life changing for me as well because I can
mm,
actually say that uh, I've helped someone with their lifestyle directly, and it's
mm.
amazing. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man. But I guess you wouldn't be chasing clients in the public health system, I'm guessing, or do you whisper in their ear as they leave, as you discharge them?
Social media,
No?
man. I'm on
Yeah.
this channel. Hey, man, come check out my YouTube channel. No,
Yeah.
nah, definitely not.
Mm,
Um, it's very hard to because most of the patients are going to be over 65, and half of them don't know what Facebook or YouTube is, so
mm,
you can't really
mm,
sort of point them in that direction. But I would say, I've predominantly been speaking to my closer network of friends and family. But I have had people reach out from places that I thought, oh, I didn't expect people to reach me from, the US, or
Mm.
yeah, it's amazing. It's good. Yeah, sorry, did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. No, well, it's always handy to know there's people out there like yourself, because sometimes people just expect me to diagnose, test, manual therapy, exercise. That's what they expect me to do. So it's good to know
Mm,
there's other people like, well, if you want to clean up your diet or get healthy, go see you, or have a look at this channel. Um, because yeah, sometimes I just get really serious with people like, this is what you need to eat, but other times I'm like, I can't be bothered. I'm just going to do the physical stuff, which is important, but I
mm,
know they
mm,
need the nutritional stuff as well. So yeah, man, I,
yeah,
I I think it's great what you're doing. I hope it grows and it's very prosperous for you. But most importantly, that people get really healthy out of it. That's the main thing, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, if I wanna get a message out there to people is that I don't wanna see you in my ward. I don't.
yeah,
I don't wanna
mm,
see you in hospital. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I truly don't want people to, become admitted to a ward and, uh, thinking that it's too late. It's not too late. I'm not saying that it's too late for people to change their lifestyle if they've gone through a traumatic, health event like, say, a stroke or whatnot. Because I mean, Dave Mack, he had a stroke, and he's recovered from that, and he's actually,
mm,
thriving on carnivore. But there are others out there
mm,
that have clearly done well on, after going through, a shit ton of health problems.
mm,
So it's never too late. It's never too late,
yeah,
but it does get harder. I'm sorry, it does get harder once you're already in the system. You know.
mm, mm,
Um,
yeah,
Sorry, I'm just catching up with comments here. Don't get caught in the study trap. I look at who is getting metabolically healthy. Yeah, I mean, n equals one. If you times that by hundreds of thousands, that's data.
mm.
That's the way I look at
So,
it. That's data for me. Yeah,
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 and we're not going to win in the scientific world, so we've got to win another way. So
yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. I was just thinking
Ooh,
of
this is
another condition. Oh yeah, go on.
yeah. Go on. Sorry. No, no, go on.
Oh, Carnival meetup, Brisbane meetup, 24th November at the Norman Hotel lunchtime. Well, that's where I famously smashed the kilo steak challenge. So
Did ya?
people can go find my name on one of the honor boards. So if they really
All
want to
right.
see fame, yeah,
I
I've
reckon I'll
actually
top
got
it
it
off.
here.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
All right.
this was conveniently here. I didn't I didn't have this here to show you. It's just completely next to me. But what is it? I dominated at Norman's kilo steak challenge. There you go.
You don't have to eat the chips, yeah? Like it's just the steak.
You can just eat the steak. I ate everything because that was part of the challenge. But oh yeah, no, you have to eat
But it's
everything.
just the
Sorry, that
steak.
was the question.
Oh no, I can yeah, no. I could do the
Yeah,
steak. Kilo steak
yeah,
easy.
we'll do the steak. Yeah, look,
Yeah, but the
I
chips, no, I
am
can't.
I am on the carnivore diet, but I do cheat. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've got my opinions about how strict we need to be. I think
Yeah.
if you have a severe autoimmune condition, you need to be pretty damn strict. I think if you
Yeah.
don't, and you can tolerate other foods, then I would say you want to be between that sort of 70 to 80%. I think that's a
Mm,
good number to strive for, because it is hard to just eat meat, particularly when you go out with people. Like it is difficult. So and
mm,
I feel like my health is pretty damn good on that sort of 80%.
mm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think though, like if we were to look at, I think, definitions, like from my understanding, a carnivore diet is anything above 70% of
mm,
uh your, I guess, your dietary intake as animal meat and animal products. However you want to classify it as, I think and this is just my interpretation as well of the anthropology and the, I guess, the paleoanthropology of diets. But the stable isotope data didn't tell us that we ate 100% meat diet. It wasn't just, meat and steak and eggs and whatnot. I think 80% of it was, you know, ruminant animals, ruminant meat, and 10% was, plant matter. Um,
mm,
and I think if we're trying to be realistic here in today's society, where we've got a surplus of food, and I'm counting vegetables in this as well, and carbs, it is very difficult to just go through life and not have a slice of bread or have a a punnet of blueberries or any of these things. It's just it's very difficult. And if you can do that, well, bloody hell, I'm jealous of you for one
mm,
that you get to live that lifestyle. But number two, whew, that's a hard road, I think, anyway. But yeah, we
mm,
all have our opinions, and I think each to their own. I think so long as majority of your diet is going to be meat and animal products, I think you're sweet. I think anything
mm,
uh, that you choose to include is preference, and it's up to you.
mm,
Yeah,
mm.
but yeah, I'll try to make this meet up here in November. You gonna be there?
I love how it's spelled,
Yeah, the
MEAT.
meetup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
I'm actually
yeah,
going to the
like,
carnival
wha
conference in
oh, where's
Adelaide.
that?
In
Okay.
Adelaide. Yeah. So I get back on the 24th. I don't know if I can attend. Yeah. Sorry, man. I cut you off. I cut you off just then.
No, I don't even know what I was saying, but, that sounds fun. Who's running that Carnival conference?
Um, I think it's by a chick called Melissa B.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, it's called the Carnivore Collective. Uh, I actually, once word got out, I'm like, for me, I'm like, this is a must. I've always wanted to do, go to these keto cons and all these carnivore things that they do in the States. I'm like, I'm just waiting for this to happen in Australia. I don't care where it is, I'm
Mm,
going.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Um,
that'd be awesome. I
hmm.
guess they won't be serving alcohol, so just meat only, right?
Never know.
Meat and
You
eggs.
never know. I don't know. I
They're
don't
they're
know.
like "Nah, once in a while, let's get on the sauce, it's alright." I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Look,
mm,
I've I do have alcohol. I still drink. Actually,
mm,
I've cut alcohol out a lot in my diet. Like I used to drink quite a lot, and I drink about once a year now. Once a year, um, and yeah, let me tell you, just if I choose to have a drink after a year, it's oh
mm,
my god, it hits you really
yeah,
hard. Like your tolerance to alcohol is just completely shook if
mm,
you've not had it for a long
mm,
time. Yeah.
yeah. Um, you
Coconut
read that
oil
one?
is acceptable. Yeah, coconut oil is acceptable if it's unrefined. It's also fine to use cold pressed olive and avocado oil. Yeah. The problem with vegetable oils, seed oils, arises from companies mixing them with seed oils. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. I agree. Um, if you can get virgin olive coconut oil, that would be preferred. Um, I actually haven't added olive oil into my diet. I just don't like the taste, but that's just me. Mm.
mm.
I use MCT oil and coffee. I'm trying to give up coffee though. I've done a
That's hard.
block of 3 months where I've not had coffee, and it was tough. It was tough, but I got through it. Meet Dave Mack and probably Bart K. Yeah, my two favorite. I'll be there.
Are they
Look, I'll
going?
try to be
Are
there.
they going?
Oh, they'll be there in the meetup at the Brisbane one.
Oh, right, really? Oh, I
Yep,
better
yep.
then better go then.
And they'll be
Dave
there
Max, uh,
at the Adelaide conference as well.
who came up with that idea? The meetup?
I think it's Sir Aid right here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sir Aid. Was
All
that
right.
you who organized the meetup? Dave Mack.
Dave Mack.
Yeah.
I wonder if he got
Yeah, he'll be here.
the idea from me when I told him that I had the kilo steak there. I reckon he did.
Maybe. Maybe.
He didn't know where that was, and I told him.
Yeah.
Is it a night?
Yeah.
Night? I'll put it in my calendar, and I'll find out what time it is. Have you been
Yeah.
on his channel yet?
I have, yeah. Years ago.
Yeah.
It was 2 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been on his channel. He's a nice guy. Very nice guy.
Mm, mm,
Yeah. Even the best olive oil naturally contains 15% PUFA, and if heated, becomes very oxidative. Avocado oil, when heated, is poison. Yeah, look, again, to avoid all of that, I just go, cook with animal meats and animal fats. I think that's the safest option. But you know,
Tastes so
each
much
to
better
their
with
own.
animal fat too.
Oh man, oh,
Yeah,
I make
yeah,
my own
I've been.
lard from bacon. Whew,
Yeah,
that's
there's
one
a
guy.
reason why it tastes good. There's a reason why
Yeah,
if you give a baby a bit of steak or a bit of bacon, they love it. It's because we're
yeah,
inherently designed to eat it. And there's a reason
yeah,
why they spit out vegetables, and I was one of them. And it's because it's bitter. It's we're not designed to eat it, and we obviously just eventually
yeah,
just learn to tolerate it, like we learn to tolerate alcohol if we're drinkers. But
yeah.
um, mm,
We're conditioned, I guess. Yeah,
but we're
yeah.
conditioned. Yeah, that's right.
You know what? I started my youngest for solids. I was on the carnivore diet, so she naturally went for what I was eating, and she went for the
Mm,
steak.
yep.
And at one stage, my toddler was carnivore for a long period of time until
Mm,
you know she went to childcare, and they started introducing different foods, and now she's had a hit of sugar. It's like, oh, where's the lollies,
mm.
where's the fruits, and it's yeah, very
It's
addictive
a
stuff.
drug. It's a drug if you really think
Yeah,
about it.
absolutely. I met Dr. Kiltz and Dr. Lisa Weidman this past Saturday. Lucky you, Leon. I mean, yeah, I wish I could have flown to the meetup, that you guys have had in the States. I see it all the time in the Instagram posts. I'm like, yep, it's just
Mm,
distance, I guess. But the Aussie scene is growing. I see a lot of Aussies getting out there. They had a local meetup here. Lucky. We need to have these local meetups more, I think. I see it on these Facebook pages, but I just it's very hard to attend for me.
mm, mm.
And yeah, bacon fat, definitely love it. All right. Well, anything else you wanted to have a chat about? Anything else that comes to mind?
There's always thousands of things that come to my mind, but I think we've talked some pretty good stuff. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I think we've worked out, or we've come to the consensus that we're only going to solve this problem through anecdotes and time. It's not going to be through science. It's not going to
Mm,
be through
no,
science.
no.
And
And I think we
those
just
who
need to
like to
appreciate that.
yeah, and those who like to believe that, then I take my hat off to you, and if you're patient enough. But it's just not going to happen. And even if it does happen, they'll just be like, oh yeah, you're just cherry picking evidence, or your sample size isn't big enough, or they'll look at you. They'll just criticize every corner of the study that looks remotely wrong, right? So,
Mm.
but yeah, I think
Yeah.
lots of YouTube channels, lots of anecdotes. Eventually, the word's going to get out, and that's really good news that some of the NRL players are on the carnivore diet because
Mm.
they're celebrities, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the
and one of
Fox,
the biggest,
the Fox, Adakar, he's come
yeah,
out. I think in a somewhere, and he said he's trying to go in carnivore.
oh,
Um,
nice,
who else was there? Someone else. I'm told back in the days there were some All Blacks
yep.
that were on carnivore. Mm,
Mm.
yeah. Yeah, we're starting to see the wave.
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
biggest celebrity who I can think of on the carnivore diet would have to be Jordan Peterson, surely.
Jordan
He'd be the
Peterson,
most
yeah,
famous.
100%.
He'd be the
100%.
most famous carnivore. Well, he and Joe Rogan. Yeah, and Joe Rogan's
Joe
more
Rogan.
intermittent. Is intermittent carnivore, but
Yeah.
he really talks about the benefits, which is good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we
Yeah.
need some more celebrities on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then talk about the celebrities that went fully vegan, such as Robert Downey Jr. He says, yes,
You're gonna.
how disgusting he looked when he was vegan. He's like, yeah, it doesn't work for me. It's they look sickly. Like the full vegans. Have you noticed that their necks get really thin? They
Yeah.
got that
Yeah.
pencil neck. You know, our necks aren't meant
Yeah.
to look
Yeah.
like that.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Not a good look. I don't think anyway. Um,
Mm,
and you notice too with a lot of the so-called vegan athletes. I don't know. Maybe it's just the ones that I've seen. A lot of them tend to have a lot of injuries.
yeah.
Like they do get a lot of injuries, and if they've changed their diet prior to their sport or their performance that they're doing, uh, they tend to perform quite poorly.
Mm,
Yeah, there was a boxer, I can't remember who it was, who went vegan before his lead up to a fight, and he got absolutely smashed after having a pretty good record. Um,
mm,
and
yeah.
went vegan and he
Yeah.
lost. But again, it's just observation. It's nothing
Mm.
scientific, but clearly,
Yeah, and
yeah.
all those vegan bodybuilders, they're just on the gear. That's why they look good. So it's not the vegan
Ooh.
diet. Yeah. So
Oh,
is
really?
that
It's not
is that
because of the plant proteins that they have.
is that controversial? Yeah.
Nah, nah. I mean, you'd have to be, I guess, new to pretty fresh eyes to think that these guys were eating just a purely vegan diet and thriving off it.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
but you know, they've got their anecdotes. They say that they perform better, that life is much better. Which I look, playing devil's advocate here, compared to a standard Western diet, I would agree that a vegan diet is slightly better.
yeah, of course.
Only until you start running into health problems later on, sooner rather than later. Sorry, I should say.
Mm. Yeah,
Uh,
but
but Jonathan's
let
on.
mm,
Sorry, man. Go
let's
on.
be I was gonna say, let's be honest though, like how many vegans are really hardcore whole food vegan? Very few. You know, so a lot of the vegans are just eating carbs, eat processed food. That's how they fill up, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah,
I know some vegans who are, I would say, mildly obese or starting to look obese. How do you figure that out? Right, so
yeah,
it's because they fill up on the carbs.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I totally agree. If you eliminate processed food, you're going to feel so much better. But to get to the peak of optimal health, you have to be eating red meat and eggs and fats. It's just not going to happen on a vegan diet. I don't
Mm.
believe so. I could be wrong, but I don't I don't look at these vegans and just think, wow, they look so healthy, because they don't. And you look at the ones that go from vegan to carnivore, they start to look so much better. They can see it in their skin,
Yeah.
their muscle mass.
Mm,
So
mm. Absolutely. Mm. Got some comments in here. Max Gulhane, too pompous to collaborate with Bart. I honestly don't know who Max Gulhane is, so I'll have to look him up. But this comment here, this is too close to home for me. Note, the chief cardiologist of the Prince Charles Hospital doesn't know what causes CVD or CHD.
he doesn't
No
need to
comment.
know.
No comment.
He doesn't need to know. He makes plenty of money treating
Yeah.
it, right? Mm.
Keep sharing. Thanks, Leon. I'll cap it off after this comment here. Veganism is a death cult whose deluded disciples mortgage their health for an ideology. What is a vegan?
Yeah.
I can't. you know, if you're basing it on the principles of minimizing animal, death and whatnot, I don't think you're achieving that through a plant eating purely plants.
Mm.
Again, just my opinion, but yeah.
Yeah. So with vegans, like, what are they really against? Are they against like the processing like of animals? Is that what they're against? Because you're not going to stop nature. Because if you go into nature, like,
No.
animals are the cruelest, most brutal things alive, because they
Yeah.
all eat each other and kill each other, right? So are they
Mm.
advocating for humans just to hunt their food, which I think is kind of pretty cool. Yeah, but we're not going to.
Mm.
It's not going to be very sustainable. We're eventually going to run out,
Mm.
right? So, like, what are they truly advocating for? I definitely agree with them that a lot of the processing of our meat is not very sanitary, and we need to make sure it is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, what are they really, protesting for? And I just don't understand that. And they're always so militant.
Like vegans are against nature.
They're so militant as well. And
Oh
I don't
yeah.
like to be I don't like to get political, but there's a big correlation with veganism and leftism. And
Mm.
I think on the Dave Mack podcast, I mentioned that, like, these carnivores are being called right wing extremists, and I just think it's
Mm.
because we're not vegans, so we're not like hardcore lefties. So I think that's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably why. So it's just another term they're
Yeah.
coming up with, right? So, mm, sorry, we're
Yeah.
going on tangents there. We had
Nah,
to do a
that's
bit
all
of
good.
vegan.
These comments are funny as vegans are
We had
against nature.
we had to do a bit of vegan bashing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's still coming. It's the comments are still coming. Vegans want human level warfare for animals while espousing throwing humans into a meat grinder. Oh God. Yeah, if you want to
Mm,
put it that way. I guess, look, don't we count as we obviously count as sentient life. We count as animals as well, if you want to put it in a big picture. And if we are not feeding our systems with the foods that we are designed to eat, isn't that considered cruelty towards us? Like we all, we
mm,
deserve optimal health as well as animals out in nature.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and it only takes
yeah.
2 minutes for a vegan to start talking about climate change.
Oh yeah, they all end up aligning with all the same values and ideologies. Like, you remember that Greta Thunberg, the little girl that went up and did that speech saying that we're all going to die. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm.
Yeah. So
Sorry, man.
she's now
Say that
all good.
again. My mic just died.
I said, you know who Greta Thunberg is? You know, that the climate change
Oh
girl,
yeah,
the
yeah,
activist. British girl, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
she's a perfect example of what I call a leftist ideologue, right? She's for climate change. She's vegan. She's anti-Israel. She's anti-America. She's anti-capitalism. So they all end up just going to the same protest. They're all the
The same
same
route.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, no,
yeah, yeah.
they are, and that's what people don't understand. And people are so blind, and they hear a news report and they think, oh my God, look at this person. They're so admirable that they're standing up for this cause. But then when you really look into the deeply into it, you find out that they're all aligned with the same ideologies, pretty
Yep,
much. Okay,
absolutely.
but
Yeah,
then you have the people that were maybe not aligned with all of them, but they jumped on the climate change bandwagon for a while. But then they took the red pill and woke up, and they started eating steak and they started feeling good. And then they realized that, oh, steak led to me listening to Jordan Peterson.
yeah,
Jordan Peterson led to me
yeah,
listening to this person. Oh, and now I realize that I don't agree with that now. So I'm going to vote Trump, Can you see how it changes?
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah,
two different types of
yeah,
people. So I would advise everyone listening to this podcast is just go out and do your own research, and always remember that there's an element of bias to everything you hear, including this conversation we're having now. We're obviously right. We
yeah,
know we are,
yeah,
but yeah,
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 yeah.
Do your own
Yeah.
research, and don't believe the mainstream media, whatever you do, because they are not journalists. They are activists. They are activists
Yeah.
coming out of university degrees. They're not journalists, including the
Mm.
ABC, which is one of the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Look, you know what? That I like that message you put out there. You do your own research and actually, you know, do better and inform yourselves on the information that's actually out there, because there's so much that is just probably been untapped for years, and you've just been oblivious to uh you know the I'm not just talking about science, but other things like politics and whatnot. um but yeah, uh let's just go through, finish off these comments. Do I have more on it in my head? I don't associate with any wing except chicken wings. They're good. Yeah. Look, I don't associate myself with any wing either, but
mm,
I guess if you were to, you can label me however you want to. I mean, you
mm,
could say I'm a right wing. It's whatever. Again, it doesn't mean
mm,
anything to me at the end of the day. I care about me, my health, and others. That's all.
mm, mm.
Hmm.
Well said. Well said.
Oh, like this one. Uh, yes, it is. It definitely is. ABC is the Australian BBC, pretty much.
I like to think the BBC is the Australian ABC. That's how I think.
Ooh, you think so?
Oh, I think
Yeah,
ABC is
we got to.
far worse.
It's pretty bad. It is pretty bad. Yeah, yeah. I love it when people post, a ABC news article or an ABC video, and I think, oh god, read the title, and it's like, you know what this is going to be about. It's just going to be, uh, anyways,
The only good thing that
vegans are
ABC have done over the years is the landline program where they actually like go on farms, talk about that. So I guess you could say that's kind of
okay. Yeah,
encouraging the farmers. But
yeah,
I mean
yeah.
that's on during the day. Like no one watches it. So
Oh dear.
mm.
All right. I think let's cap it at that, man. We're at the 2 hour
Yep.
mark. This is probably the longest live stream I've had, and we've had some good chats, actually. Really good chats.
Thanks, man.
Love it.
Appreciate it.
No,
Yeah, I mean,
really
like I
do
said,
appreciate
there's
it.
probably a thousand more things I could have thought of, but eventually you just got to be like, okay, that's the night over. We'll do it again another time.
Mm, mm, mm.
Mm,
Yeah, but we'll do this again, man. I'm keen to do this again. This is really good.
mm,
We are very slightly right wing, but nothing to write about home about. Yeah, yeah, fair
mm.
enough. Best way to stand against tyranny is to be healthy and strong. Four important things in life. Absolutely. Put it on a shirt. Put it on a shirt. All right. Well, guys and girls, thank you for watching. I want to thank Alex, mate. Thank you for jumping on and having a chat, talking to us about your story,
Mm,
and really just promoting the message that people need to know about. And I really
mm.
do appreciate your time.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. And yeah, thanks for encouraging me to jump on. To be honest, 6 months ago, I would never have thought I'd be doing anything like this, and I was a fairly private person, and remain so. But like I said earlier, I think if the good people do nothing and say nothing, then we're stuffed. So I'm
Yeah,
just trying to
yeah,
fill that role.
yeah, yeah. And
Mm,
that's good, man. That's and I read that from you on the last interview you did with Dave Mack. So I was keen to get you back on the channel. And we need people like you and others out there that just need to get the word out there and preach about this carnivore diet. Or it doesn't have to be carnivore, I reckon. I think preach anything outside of what they're
mm,
considering as the norm.
mm,
you know
mm. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just there's just too much bullshit that we've been fed. But yeah, anyways, I'll end the stream now, guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you in the next live stream, whenever that will be. All right, see you guys.
Cool, man. See
Ending.
ya.